900 kilometers per hour, 1,500 kilometers of range, 12 minutes. An American aircraft carrier is the most powerful warship ever built by any nation in the history of human civilization. It costs $13 billion. It takes 10 years to construct from keel to commissioning. It carries 5,000 sailors and 90 aircraft capable of striking any target within 1,000 miles. It is, by every military measure, the most dominant conventional weapon system on the planet. And China built a missile with one purpose: to destroy one in under 12 minutes. Today, we are going to answer 3 questions. First, does that missile actually work? Second, what has it already done to American military strategy, even without ever being fired in combat? And third, what happens in the Pacific if war breaks out tomorrow? This is not speculation. This is based on publicly available threat assessments, declassified war game results, and Pentagon budget documents. The picture they paint is one that the United States military is taking very seriously, and that most Americans know almost nothing about. Let's start with what a carrier actually means. The United States Navy operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. No other country on Earth operates more than 2. For context, China, the second largest naval power, currently operates 3, and 2 of those are significantly less capable than any American carrier. But the number 11 understates the strategic reality. Each carrier does not travel alone. It moves as the center of what the Navy calls a carrier strike group, a formation that includes 2 guided missile cruisers, between 2 and 3 destroyers, 2 attack submarines operating silently below the surface, and a supply vessel. Together, that group represents more firepower than the entire naval forces of most nations on Earth. The carrier itself is the heart of American power projection. When a crisis erupts anywhere in the world, the first question senior officials in Washington ask is always the same one: where are the carriers? That question has been asked in every major American foreign policy crisis since the Second World War. The carrier is not merely a weapon, it is a statement. A declaration that America can project force to any point on the globe within days. This dominance traces back to June of 1942. At the Battle of Midway, American carrier-based aircraft destroyed 4 Japanese fleet carriers in a single day, fundamentally altering the course of the Pacific War and establishing once and for all that the era of the battleship was over. The carrier was the new apex predator of naval warfare. For the 8 decades that followed, no adversary successfully threatened an American carrier at sea. China decided to change that. The missile is called the Dongfeng 21D DF-21D for short. The name Dongfeng means east wind, and it is part of a family of ballistic missiles that China has been developing since the 1980s. But the D variant is different from anything that came before it. It was specifically engineered to do something no land-based missile had ever done: find and destroy a moving aircraft carrier at sea. Here are the numbers. The DF-21D has a range of approximately 1,500 kilometers. It travels at roughly 10 times the speed of sound during its terminal phase. That is the phase when it is descending toward its target. It carries a warhead estimated between 500 and 2,000 kilograms, depending on the configuration. A direct hit on a carrier's flight deck would at minimum render it combat ineffective, and at maximum, depending on the warhead, that could be catastrophic. But the range and the speed are almost secondary. The truly revolutionary part of the DF-21D is what happens in the final minutes of its flight. Most ballistic missiles follow a predictable arc. You calculate the trajectory, you aim for where the target will be, and you hope the math is right. That works fine against a city. It does not work against a carrier moving at 30 knots in open ocean. By the time a standard ballistic missile completes a 12-minute flight across 1,500 kilometers, a carrier has moved 8 nautical miles from its position when the missile was launched. On a standard ballistic trajectory, you miss completely. The DF-21D solves this with what the military calls a maneuvering re-entry vehicle. After the missile re-enters the atmosphere, small fins and steering controls activate. The warhead begins making corrections. It receives updated targeting data mid-flight. It adjusts its descent path, chasing the carrier as it moves, steering toward a ship it cannot see directly, but which is being tracked continuously by satellites and radar. It is, in the most fundamental sense, a guided weapon that thinks on the way down. Now here is where intellectual honesty requires a pause. The DF-21D has never been fired at a real aircraft carrier. It has been tested over land, over the South China Sea, against simulated targets. China has publicly claimed it can reliably hit a carrier-sized target. Those claims have never been independently verified. The actual kill probability of a single DF-21D against an American carrier with its full suite of active defenses is genuinely unknown. What is not unknown is the American response. The United States Navy has spent billions of dollars restructuring its Pacific strategy, repositioning its carriers, and developing countermeasures, not because the Pentagon is panicking, but because the threat, even if imperfect, has already fundamentally changed the calculus of war in the Pacific. When a weapon forces your enemy to rethink 80 years of doctrine before it has ever been used in battle, that weapon is working. Let's talk about how the kill chain actually functions, because this is what separates the DF-21D from a conventional missile. Hitting a moving ship from 1,500 kilometers away requires more than just a smart warhead. It requires a complete system, a pipeline of detection, tracking, targeting, and guidance that must function without interruption from the moment the missile launches to the moment it hits. Militaries call this a kill chain, and every link in that chain has to hold. China's kill chain for the DF-21D starts in space. China operates a constellation of reconnaissance satellites that can track surface ships in the Pacific. These satellites pass over target areas on regular intervals and feed position data back to ground stations. The second link is over-the-horizon radar. China has invested heavily in radar systems capable of detecting large surface ships at ranges exceeding 3,000 kilometers. These radar stations can identify and track carrier strike group even when they are far outside visual or conventional radar range. The third link is the command and data network. Position data from satellites and radar feeds into command centers, which calculate the carrier's course and speed, predict its future position, and program that data into the missile. The fourth link is the missile itself, the DF-21D in its hardened silo or mobile launcher, receiving final targeting data and executing the launch sequence. The fifth and final link is the in-flight correction system, the maneuvering re-entry vehicle receiving updated position data during descent and steering itself to impact. Every single link in that chain must function under combat conditions, meaning under active American electronic warfare, cyber operations, and potentially kinetic strikes against radar and satellite systems. The United States military has spent years analyzing where that chain might break, and China has spent years reinforcing the links. Then they built an upgrade. In 2015, China revealed the Dongfeng 26, the DF-26. Military analysts in Washington gave it a nickname immediately, the Guam Killer. The reason is straightforward. The DF-26 has a range of approximately 4,000 kilometers, more than double the DF-21D. At 4,000 kilometers, the missile's reach extends far beyond the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. It reaches Guam. Guam is the most significant American military installation in the Pacific. Anderson Air Force Base on Guam operates B-52 bombers, B-2 stealth aircraft, and hosts rotational deployments of virtually every major platform in the American arsenal. Naval Base Guam supports submarine operations across the Western Pacific. Do you believe the United States military has a credible answer to the DF-21D and China's broader naval buildup? Or has America fallen behind? I read every comment. Tell me what you think.